Welcome to MSL Stories. I really appreciate your support. Let's start the story. My name is Oliver, and I always thought I had life figured out. I'm 37, a financial advisor, and I've built a pretty good life. I own a beautiful home, a gift from my late parents, which I've always thought of as a symbol of stability. My wife Lisa and I have been married for 10 years. We have twins, Max and Lucy, who are the center of my world. At least, that's what I believed. It was a Thursday evening, an ordinary day that would turn out to be anything but ordinary. I had just come home from work, a little earlier than usual. The house was quiet, which was odd because usually by this time I would hear the kids playing or Lisa humming in the kitchen. But there was silence. I walked through the hallway and passed by the partially open door of the twins' room. That's when I heard her voice. Lisa's, whispering something I couldn't quite make out at first. I stopped, my hand halfway to the door handle, and leaned closer. Soon, you'll meet your real father. Just wait a little longer. But remember, don't tell your stepfather, Oliver, anything about this. It has to be our secret for now. My breath caught in my throat. Stepfather, what was she talking about? I felt my heart start pounding in my chest. I strained to listen, every word sharpening the knife that was twisting in my gut. The twins, my Max and Lucy, sounded excited. When can we meet him, Mom? Is he like us? Does he know about us? Lisa's reply was calm, too calm. Yes, he knows. He's been waiting too, but remember, we can't tell Oliver yet. It'll happen soon, I promise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman, my wife, who I had shared my life with for a decade, was telling my children that someone else was their father, and they knew. They had known all along. My head swam with questions. How long had this been going on? Who was this man she was talking about? Was this a joke? A cruel prank? No. I knew Lisa's tone. This was no prank. I couldn't stand it anymore. I pushed open the door, and the room went dead silent. Lisa's eyes widened in shock when she saw me standing there. The twins froze. I heard everything, I said, my voice cold, controlled. And don't bother trying to twist it. There's no misunderstanding. Lisa's face paled, and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could see her scrambling, trying to figure out how to explain this, but there was no explanation she could offer me. Not now. Not after what I had just heard. I need answers, now, I demanded. The kids looked back and forth between us, confused, but Lisa didn't speak. I left the room without another word, my mind racing, the foundation of my entire life suddenly crumbling beneath me. I walked straight to our bedroom, my hands shaking as I pulled out my laptop. I didn't know who this real father was, but I had to confirm what I already feared deep down. A DNA test was the first thing that came to mind. It was drastic, but I needed proof. I couldn't rely on her words or some half-hearted confession. I needed hard evidence that would answer the question gnawing at me. Were Max and Lucy even mine? That night, Lisa tried to talk to me, but I wasn't ready to hear anything. I couldn't even look at her. Instead, I slept on the couch. Or rather, I tried to sleep, but my mind was too loud, replaying that conversation over and over. What kind of man have I been all these years, living a lie, raising children that may not even be mine, with a wife who had been keeping the darkest secret imaginable from me? The next few days were torture. Lisa avoided bringing up the topic again, acting as though nothing had happened. I, on the other hand, barely spoke to her unless it was absolutely necessary. I was waiting for the DNA test results, waiting for my reality to either be shattered completely or given a thin, fragile chance of survival. When the email came through with the DNA test results, my heart stopped. I clicked it open, each second feeling like an eternity. The confirmation hit me like a punch to the gut. The twins were not mine. Not biologically, anyway. The truth staring back at me from that cold, clinical document was clear. And then, in that moment of cold clarity, I knew what I had to do. I was not going to be the man who begged for explanations. I was not going to be the man who tried to save something that was beyond repair. No, this called for something different, something more final. The betrayal I felt was beyond words, and my revenge, well, it had to be just as thorough as the deceit. There would be no forgiveness, no going back. This wasn't just about Lisa anymore. It was about everything she had taken from me, my trust, my sense of family, my pride. I wasn't just going to make her pay. I was going to make sure that everyone involved, her, this so-called real father, and anyone who dared support them, felt the full weight of what they had done. My house, my life, my children, this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The day after I got the DNA test results, I confronted Lisa. I wasn't going to drag this out any longer. My mind was set, and my heart had turned to stone. There was no room for hesitation. She was in the kitchen, making breakfast for the kids like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I stood there for a moment, just watching her. It was strange how someone I had loved for so long could now seem like a stranger. My wife, the mother of the children I thought were mine, the woman I had shared my life with, had been hiding something so vile, so disgusting from me for nearly a decade. I couldn't take the silence any longer. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. Lisa froze, the spatula in her hand clattering to the floor. For a second, she didn't turn around, as if she were hoping she could ignore the question and it would disappear. But she knew. She knew what I was asking. Slowly, she turned to face me, her face pale, her lips trembling. "Oliver, please, let me explain." "No," I interrupted, stepping closer, my voice steady but filled with the cold fury that had been simmering since I overheard that conversation. "No more lies, no more explanations. I know everything. I did a DNA test, Lisa. Max and Lucy aren't mine." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, her face twisting in anguish. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been lying to me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I had seen enough manipulation to know what this was. She was scrambling, trying to buy herself time, trying to figure out how to spin this to make me feel pity, to make me the one who backed down. But I wasn't that man anymore. "Oliver, it's not what you think." "Stop." I held up a hand, cutting her off again. "Don't insult me by pretending it's anything other than what it is. Who is he? Tell me his name." She hesitated for a long moment, then sighed, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "His name is Daniel." Daniel! I didn't recognize the name, but it didn't matter. I didn't care who he was, just that he existed. I stared at her, waiting for more, but she said nothing. "Are you still seeing him?" I asked, my voice unnervingly calm. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It was before the twins were born. I stopped everything when I got pregnant. I thought you would never find out." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that seemed to echo in the small kitchen. "You thought I'd never find out? You thought you could live this lie for the rest of our lives?" She didn't answer. What could she say? The truth was laid bare, and no amount of pleading could undo the damage. For years, I had lived under the illusion that I was Max and Lucy's father. I had raised them, loved them, devoted every part of myself to their well-being. And all the while, she had known the truth. She had known that they weren't mine. "And the kids," I said, my voice dropping to a cold whisper. "They knew, didn't they? You told them I wasn't their father." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. I didn't want to, but they started asking questions. I didn't want to lie to them forever, so instead you just lied to me." The betrayal hit me again, fresh and sharp like a knife twisting in my gut. I had been the one in the dark. I had been the fool, thinking I had the perfect family, the perfect life. "You have no idea what you've done," I said, stepping back, the realization of my next steps becoming clearer. "This marriage is over. There's nothing left here." "Oliver, please." She started toward me, her hands outstretched, but I stepped back again, shaking my head. "There's no going back from this," I said. "You've destroyed everything." Her tears came harder, her voice breaking as she pleaded with me. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. I love you, Oliver. Please don't throw everything away." I almost laughed again at the absurdity of it. She had thrown everything away the moment she decided to lie to me for 8 years. There was nothing to save. "This is done, Lisa," I said, my voice low and final. "Pack your things and leave. This house is mine, and I don't want you here anymore." She blinked, stunned. "You can't just kick me out. I'm the mother of your children." "They're not my children," I snapped, the anger finally spilling over. "They're his. So go to him, Lisa. Go to your Daniel, if you even know where he is. You've got no place here anymore." Her face crumpled and she collapsed into sobs, but I didn't care. Not anymore. The weight of her betrayal had crushed any sympathy I might have had for her. All I saw now was someone who had lied to me, who had made a fool of me. I left her there, crying in the kitchen, and walked out of the house. As the door closed behind me, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to let her or anyone else involved in this mess get away without consequences. The betrayal was complete. Now it was time to plan my revenge. Not just against Lisa, but against the man who had taken everything from me without even knowing it. After leaving the house, I sat in my car for what felt like hours. The fury that had simmered beneath the surface wasn't going to fade. It was only going to grow. I needed to channel it into something productive. Revenge wasn't going to be spontaneous or emotional. It needed to be cold, calculated, and most of all, effective. I drove to a nearby coffee shop, opened my laptop, and started planning. The first thing I did was email my lawyer, Sarah. I'd known Sarah since college, and I trusted her more than anyone. She was a shark in the courtroom, and that's exactly what I needed now. I didn't give her all the details yet, just that I needed a consultation about a personal matter. I knew she would be on my side, and in the cutthroat world of law, loyalty like hers was rare. I knew this was going to be messy. A divorce, child custody, and potentially financial ruin for Lisa and whoever this Daniel guy was. But I wasn't going to stop there. I didn't want this to just be an emotional separation. I wanted Lisa to feel the weight of every decision she'd made. I wanted her to lose everything she had taken for granted. The next day, I met with Sarah in her office. She welcomed me with a warm smile, but that smile faded quickly when she saw the look on my face. "What's going on, Oliver?" she asked, her tone shifting to serious in an instant. I handed her the DNA results. "I need a divorce," I said, "and I need it to be as devastating as possible for her." Sarah glanced at the papers, her brow furrowing. She read for a few moments before looking back at me. "The kids aren't yours?" "No," I said, my voice tight. "Lisa's been lying to me for years. The twins are someone else's. I found out she had an affair before they were born. She kept me in the dark." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her face thoughtful. "That's rough. I'm sorry you're going through this. But if you want to hit her where it hurts, we're going to have to be smart about this. First thing we need to discuss is the house. It's yours, correct?" "Absolutely. My parents gave it to me before they passed. Lisa has no claim to it." She nodded, making notes. "Good. We'll make sure she doesn't get a cent from that. Now, as for custody, this is where it gets tricky. Legally, you're the father. You're on the birth certificates, and you've raised them. Even though the DNA test proves otherwise, the courts often take the stance that the man listed as the father is the legal guardian, especially since you've acted as their father for 8 years. I wasn't sure if I felt relieved or furious about that. On one hand, I loved Max and Lucy. I couldn't imagine my life without them, even after everything. On the other hand, they weren't mine biologically, and the thought of continuing to care for them while knowing the truth was almost unbearable. "I don't want to pay alimony or child support," I said firmly. "If I'm going to raise them, it's going to be on my terms, not hers." Sarah tapped her pen against her notepad, thinking, "We can work with that. We'll build a case showing that since you've been the primary provider and caregiver, the kids are better off staying with you. That will also help us avoid any significant financial obligations toward Lisa." "What about her?" I asked. "Can we make sure she doesn't get anything?" Sarah's lips curved into a small smile. "Oh, we'll make sure she gets nothing. But to do that, we need to make sure we're handling this carefully. You can't go in guns blazing, Oliver. You need to play it smart. This means keeping a calm demeanor, being cooperative in public, and letting me handle the legal side of things." I nodded. That was what I wanted to hear. No rash decisions, no emotional outbursts, just cold, strategic moves. "There's one more thing," I said. "This guy, Daniel, I don't know much about him, but I need to find out. He's the one who wrecked my life behind the scenes. I want to know everything about him, his career, his family, his weaknesses." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's not exactly my area, but I know a few private investigators who can help with that. If this Daniel is as dirty as I suspect, we can use that to make sure Lisa's relationship with him collapses too. And if he's got anything to lose, like his career or his reputation, we'll make sure he loses that as well." I felt a surge of satisfaction. This was going to be thorough. I wasn't just going to end the marriage. I was going to dismantle the fantasy life Lisa had built for herself and make sure Daniel paid his share too. "Let's start with the divorce," Sarah continued. "We'll file under grounds of adultery, which should work in your favor. We'll secure the house, the kids, and make sure you're not left with any financial obligations. After that, we can deal with Daniel." I left Sarah's office that day feeling a strange sense of calm. The storm was still raging inside me, but now it had direction. I wasn't just going to react to what had been done to me. I was going to take control. Every move Lisa had made to deceive me was going to be countered with one of my own. Every secret she thought she could keep would be dragged into the light. When I got home, Lisa was waiting for me in the living room. Her face was red and tear-streaked, as if she'd spent the entire day crying. I didn't care. "I've talked to my lawyer," I said flatly. "We're filing for divorce." She looked up at me, her eyes wide. "Oliver, please." "No," I interrupted. "I'm done with this. I'll be staying in the house, you'll be leaving, and I'll be taking care of the kids." Her face crumpled. You can't do that. They're my children too. They're not mine, I said coldly. But I'll raise them because that's what they deserve. You, on the other hand, deserve nothing. She started to cry again, but I turned and walked away, heading upstairs to my bedroom. The planning had begun. Lisa and Daniel were about to lose everything. I didn't wait long to set things in motion. The next morning, after my conversation with Sarah, I took the kids to school as usual, keeping things as normal as possible for them. But as I drove back home, I knew this would be the last day Lisa spent under my roof. When I walked through the front door, she was waiting in the living room, a mixture of dread and desperation etched on her face. She knew something was coming, but I doubt she expected the full extent of what I was about to lay on her. "Oliver, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. I paused in the doorway, my eyes locking onto hers. "You're right. We do." For a moment, she looked relieved, like she thought maybe there was a chance for reconciliation, that perhaps I was ready to listen to her side of things, to understand, to forgive. But she didn't know me anymore. The Oliver she thought she could manipulate with tears and apologies was gone. "I spoke to my lawyer," I said, stepping into the room. "We're filing for divorce." Her relief evaporated instantly. "No, Oliver, please, I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "Stop!" My voice cut through her words like ice. "This isn't something that can be fixed, Lisa. This isn't a mistake. You've been lying to me for nearly a decade. You've let me raise children that aren't mine while keeping me in the dark. This is beyond repair." Tears welled up in her eyes again, but they didn't move me. I was done feeling sympathy for her. "Oliver, I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I could just keep things the way they were, we'd be okay. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't want to hurt me. You think hiding the fact that I'm not the father of the kids I've loved and raised for 8 years wasn't going to hurt me? You've destroyed our family, Lisa. You destroyed it the moment you decided to lie to me." She tried to approach me, her hands outstretched, but I stepped back, maintaining the emotional distance I needed to keep my resolve. "Don't," I warned. "This conversation is over. You'll be leaving the house today." Her face twisted in shock. "You can't just throw me out, Oliver. This is my home too." "No, it's not," I said coldly. "This house is mine. My parents gave it to me, and it's in my name. Legally, you have no claim to it. You'll be leaving, and you won't be taking the kids with you. They're better off with me." Her tears turned to anger now, her face contorting in disbelief. "You can't take the kids from me. I'm their mother, and I've been their father," I said firmly. "Even if not by blood, I've raised them. I've provided for them. You've been lying to them too. I've already spoken to my lawyer. We're filing for full custody, and you won't get a dime in alimony or child support." She took a shaky step back, clearly realizing just how much control she was losing. "How can you be so cold? I made a mistake, yes, but you're punishing me like I'm some kind of monster." "Maybe because what you did was monstrous," I replied, my voice steady and calm, which seemed to infuriate her even more. "You lied to me, manipulated me, and now you're facing the consequences." For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at me as though I was a stranger, and maybe I was, to her. This version of me, uncompromising, unforgiving, wasn't someone she had expected to deal with. She thought I would bend, that I would crumble and try to salvage our marriage out of love for her or for the kids, but she had miscalculated. I walked over to the front door, opened it, and gestured outside. "It's time for you to go." Lisa stood frozen for a few seconds, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You're throwing me out without anything? You're just done with me?" I nodded. "Yes, you've destroyed this family. There's no going back. You can take whatever personal things you need, but you'll leave today. My lawyer will be in touch." Her expression wavered between shock, anger, and desperation. She opened her mouth to protest again, but something in my expression must have told her it was pointless. She stormed upstairs to pack a few things, and I let her. I wasn't going to watch her beg anymore. I sat on the couch, my mind numb to the sound of her footsteps. She had spent years weaving this web of lies, and now she was seeing it all unravel in front of her. I didn't care about her tears. She had chosen this path the moment she decided to betray me. After a while, she came back downstairs with a suitcase. Her eyes were red and swollen, but her face had taken on a stubborn, angry expression. "You think you're going to get away with this? You think you can just push me out of this house and take everything? You're not going to get away with it, Oliver. I'll fight for my rights." I stared at her unfazed. "You can try, but the law is on my side. I've already made sure of that." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing else. She stormed past me, yanking the door open and slamming it behind her as she left. The silence that followed felt heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of finality, of an ending that had been a long time coming. I stared at the door for a while, letting the reality of it all settle in. I had won the first round, Lisa was gone, and the house was mine. The kids would be staying with me, and there would be no financial support for her. But there was more to be done. Lisa wasn't the only one who had to pay for what had happened. Daniel, the man who had wormed his way into my life without ever showing his face, he had no idea what was coming for him, but I was going to make sure he felt the consequences of his actions just as much as Lisa had. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I grabbed my phone and texted Sarah. "She's gone. Now let's take care of the rest." There was still a lot of work to do, but I felt strangely calm, like I was finally in control of my own life again. The revenge wasn't complete, but it had begun, and there was no stopping it now. With Lisa gone from the house, the next phase of my plan was already in motion. I knew Lisa would try to turn the narrative in her favor, painting me as the cruel husband who threw her out without warning. She'd try to cling to the image of the perfect wife and mother in the eyes of our friends and family, but I wasn't going to let that happen. If there was one thing I had learned from this, it was that secrecy allowed betrayal to thrive. So I was going to shine a bright light on all of it. The weekend after she left, I organized a small gathering at the house. It was something we often did, invite our closest friends and a few family members over for dinner or drinks. I was sure some of them had heard whispers that something was wrong, but no one knew the full story yet. That was about to change. As people started arriving, I kept things light. I didn't want to give anything away too soon. The kids were with my sister for the night, so it was just me and a group of people who had always believed Lisa and I were the perfect couple. Little did they know that image was about to be shattered. As the evening went on, I made small talk and the wine flowed. People were laughing, enjoying themselves, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. I watched them closely, waiting for the right moment to drop the truth. Finally, as we all gathered in the living room, I stood up, clearing my throat. "I want to thank all of you for coming tonight," I began, my tone steady but serious. "I know things might have seemed a bit off lately, and I wanted to take this opportunity to be completely honest with you." The room quieted, everyone turning to look at me. I could see the curiosity in their eyes. Some of them had probably already guessed that this was about Lisa, but they had no idea how deep the betrayal ran. "Lisa and I are getting a divorce," I said bluntly. There were gasps, shocked expressions from every corner of the room. Whispers followed, but I wasn't done. I let the weight of my words settle before continuing. "I found out a few weeks ago that Lisa has been lying to me for the better part of a decade. The twins, Max and Lucy, they aren't mine. She had an affair before they were born, and for 8 years she let me believe that I was their father." Silence fell over the room like a heavy curtain. I could see the shock, the disbelief, and even some pity in their faces. But I didn't want pity. I wanted them to understand the full gravity of what had been done to me. "I overheard her telling the kids that soon they'd meet their real father," I continued, my voice calm but deliberate. "Imagine finding out, after all this time, that the family you've been building is a lie. That the person you trusted most in the world has been keeping a secret so devastating you can't even begin to wrap your mind around it." I could see a few people shaking their heads, murmuring to each other. Some were trying to hide their shock, but it was clear that none of them had expected this. Lisa had played her part well over the years, smiling, laughing, being the perfect wife in public. But behind the scenes, she had been living a lie, and now I was stripping that lie bare for all to see. "Lisa is gone," I said, a finality in my tone that left no room for doubt. "She's left the house, and I'm keeping custody of the kids. This isn't just about the betrayal, it's about taking back control of my life. I wanted you all to hear it from me because I know the rumors will start flying soon, and I have no intention of letting her twist this into something it's not." I paused, scanning the faces of my friends, some of whom had known Lisa and me for years. I could see the discomfort, the awkwardness. No one knew what to say, but that was fine. I wasn't expecting sympathy. I wasn't expecting anyone to take sides. I just wanted the truth out in the open. One of my close friends, David, finally spoke up. "Oliver, man, I had no idea. I'm so sorry you're going through this." I nodded. "Thank you. It's been hard, but it's not over yet. There's still more to deal with. But I'm not going to let this define me. I'm moving forward, and I wanted to make sure that all of you know the truth before Lisa tries to spin it any other way." There were murmurs of agreement, nods of support, but I could also see the wheels turning in some of their heads. The gossip would spread like wildfire after tonight, but that was the point. Lisa's carefully constructed facade would crumble under the weight of the truth, and I would make sure she couldn't rebuild it. The evening wound down after that, and as people began to leave, they each offered their support. Some were more shocked than others, but I didn't care about their reactions. I had done what I needed to do. The truth was out, and now Lisa would have to face the consequences of her actions. Not just from me, but from everyone who had once believed she was something she wasn't. As the last guest left, I stood by the door, feeling a strange sense of closure. It wasn't over yet. There was still Daniel and the legal battle ahead, but I had taken the first step. I had stripped away the lies, and now Lisa's life was as exposed as she had made mine. Revenge wasn't just about punishing her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my control, and my future. This was just the beginning. With Lisa out of the picture, it was time to focus on Daniel, the man behind the scenes, the one who had been living his life freely, likely unaware of the chaos he had sown. I wasn't content with just ending my marriage and keeping the house. No, I wanted Daniel to feel the weight of his decisions. He had, knowingly or not, taken part in destroying my life. Now it was his turn. I needed information. Who was this man? What kind of life was he living while I was unknowingly raising his children? I contacted a private investigator, someone Sarah had recommended. Mark, a grizzled veteran of the business, had a reputation for being discreet and thorough. Find everything you can on him, I told Mark when we met. His job, his finances, his family, whatever skeletons he has in his closet. I want them all. Mark didn't need much more direction than that. He got to work immediately, and within a week, he had uncovered more than I had expected. Daniel wasn't just some random guy who had slept with my wife. He was a corporate lawyer, well known in his field, working for a high-profile law firm. He had a wife and 2 children of his own, living in a high-end neighborhood in the city. The irony wasn't lost on me. This man, who had ruined my family, was living the picture-perfect life, likely blissfully unaware that his affair with Lisa was about to catch up to him. But I wasn't going to let him continue his comfortable existence without repercussions. Mark had also found evidence of something more damaging. Daniel had been involved in some questionable legal practices. He had skirted ethical boundaries in a few major cases, enough that if this information were made public, his career would be on the line. His reputation was built on being a ruthless, cutthroat lawyer, but if the right people saw these reports, that reputation would crumble. I smiled as Mark laid out the details. "This is exactly what I needed," I said, already thinking about how to use this information. The next step was simple. I anonymously sent the evidence Mark had collected to the partners at Daniel's law firm, along with a few key regulatory agencies. I made sure the timing was perfect. Right before his firm was set to take on a high-profile case, the fallout would be immediate and devastating. I didn't want to confront Daniel directly. That wasn't part of the plan. I wanted him to feel the effects of my actions without ever knowing who had orchestrated his downfall. Within a few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that Daniel was under investigation, and his firm had suspended him. His career, his livelihood, and his carefully curated public image were beginning to unravel, just like the life I had once known. As I watched it all unfold, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. Daniel was paying the price for his part in this, and it was only the beginning. I wasn't looking for closure. I was looking for justice, and I was getting it. With Daniel's career in freefall and Lisa out of the house, I finally began to feel a sense of control over my life again. The chaos that had consumed me for weeks was beginning to settle, but the consequences of their betrayal were far from over for either of them. Lisa had tried to reach out to me multiple times. At first, she sent tearful messages, apologizing, begging me to reconsider. She wanted to meet in person, to talk things through, but I wasn't interested. Each time I ignored her calls and texts. She had made her choice and I had made mine. The emotional manipulation that might have worked on me before was no longer effective. I was beyond feeling sorry for her. Through Sarah, I kept everything strictly legal. We filed for divorce under grounds of adultery, as planned, and pursued full custody of the kids. Lisa's life, which she had taken for granted, was falling apart piece by piece. She was staying with a friend now, but I knew that wouldn't last forever. Eventually, she'd have to find somewhere else, without any financial help from me. As for Max and Lucy, the children I had raised, loved, and devoted myself to, nothing changed in my relationship with them. They were still my kids, regardless of biology. I wasn't going to let them suffer because of the decisions their mother had made. They didn't deserve to lose the only stable parent they had ever known, and I wasn't about to let Lisa's deceit destroy the bond I had with them. When the courts ruled in my favor, granting me full custody of the twins, I felt a sense of victory, not because I had won in the traditional sense, but because I knew I was doing what was best for them. Lisa was allowed visitation, of course, but only on supervised terms. The courts recognized that I had been the one providing stability for them, and I wasn't about to let her take that away, especially now. Word of what had happened spread through our social circle like wildfire. Lisa had lost more than just her home. She had lost the respect of our friends, the community we had built together. People who had once admired our relationship now saw her for who she truly was. There was no sympathy for her, no one rushing to comfort her. The life she had carefully curated for herself was unraveling, just like Daniel's. I kept hearing whispers about Daniel's downfall too. His law firm eventually let him go, unable to deal with the damage the investigation had done to their reputation. His personal life was no better. His wife had found out about the affair, and she had filed for divorce as well. Daniel had lost everything he had built for himself. It wasn't just the affair that had cost him, though. The legal scandals that had come to light after the anonymous tips I sent in had done irreversible damage. No law firm would touch him now. His career was in ruins, and with it the comfortable, prestigious life he had enjoyed. I never heard from him directly, and that was how I wanted it. The beauty of my revenge was in its distance. He had no idea who had been responsible for the series of events that led to his downfall, but I knew, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I began rebuilding my life, brick by brick. The house was quieter without Lisa, but it was peaceful. The kids adjusted more quickly than I had expected, and we settled into a new routine. There were still difficult days, of course. The nights when I was alone with my thoughts, the memories of the betrayal resurfacing like ghosts. But each day that passed brought more clarity, more closure. I had been through hell, but I had come out the other side stronger, more focused. The people who had tried to break me, Lisa and Daniel, had instead broken themselves. Their lies, their betrayals, had cost them everything. And in the end, I hadn't just survived, I had thrived. As I sat in the living room one evening, watching Max and Lucy play together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself, but it was mine, and I had reclaimed it on my terms. There was no more looking back, no more what-ifs or regrets. I had made sure the people who wronged me had paid the price, and now I could finally move forward, knowing that justice had been served, not just for me, but for the future I was building for myself and my children. The revenge was complete, and with it, so was my freedom. Thank you, friends.